Hey, this is Robbie Crane from Black Star Writers, and you're listening to Nothing Shocking Podcast. Rock out.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers, like our Facebook page, or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, soon to be coming back to downtown Davenport, Iowa, I believe in July. We would like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music in our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Robbie Crane, Part 2.
Part 2. This time we're going to be discussing Vince Neil.
Yep, we dive a little bit deeper into some areas like Saints of the Underground.
Saints of the Underground. And then what else? We kind of went with Tuff. And just an assortment of all kinds of things that we didn't cover on the first episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what do you think, man? Should we get to this interview?
All right, here we go.
Good night.
Good night.
Robbie, welcome back to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I would like to reintroduce to you my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Robbie, it's great to talk to you again tonight.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me again.
This is fantastic. So we had such a great conversation with you last time that we didn't even get to about, a couple questions. And so we wrote out even more because you have such a extensive resume. That's what I'm trying to say. So, where we left off last time was we were going to kind of get into Saints of the Underground, and we never really got to that. So, supergroups fascinate me. 2008 Saints of the Underground, love the sin, hate the sinner. Some of our listeners might not realize that band consisted of yourself, Bobby Blotzer, Carrie Kelly, Jani Lane. Can you talk a little bit more about the band, how it was formed, and the writing and recording of that album?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So to clarify out of the gate, it's very important that everyone understands this. I'm not on that record. That is Chuck Wright from Quiet Riot that plays bass on that record. But I am in the photo, and yes, I was in the band. And what happened was that band started, I think it started from Bobby Blotzer, Carrie Kelly, John Corabi and myself. We had a band together, like a jam band. We'd get together and do little one-off shows once in a while, and that band morphed into a band where Jani Lane was fronting it. That's how I met Carrie Kelly, was through Jani, and so it was Jani, Bobby, Carrie, and I, and we got offered a record deal. And I was having my second baby at the time, Isabella, literally at the hospital when the record company's like, we have to talk about the record deal right now. So I literally am like, I'm having a baby. You know what I mean? The last thing I need to be going over right now are like some points and what's, you know what I mean? And all this. So what happened was there were no songs before the record. Well, not like as a band. So what happened was I said, guys, I'm having a baby. I got to bow out. So I literally left the band because of the baby, right? Because I'm having a baby. And so the three of them, Jani, Bobby, Carrie, negotiated the deal. They came back later and were like, oh, we want you to do it. I said, no, you know what? You guys do it. I'm not going to do it with you. So they got Chuck Wright. Chuck did the record. And then they used the photos from the band, prior to the record, which I'm in, for the record. So I'm actually not on that record at all. It's just my photo. And I was like, why'd you use my photo? But, and Chuck, so with Chuck, who's a fantastic bass player and a wonderful cat and, just a great guy, I'm always like, dude, Chuck, you keep getting screwed out of credit for records. Like, he's on that first Quiet Riot record too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's on a lot of records, dude. Chuck's great. He's a fantastic player and a really great guy. And he's a monster player, and he's on a lot of records that people don't really realize that he's on. I mean, tons of records. And so it's Chuck. Yeah, our bro Chuck Wright. I'm throwing props out to Chuck. So that's how the Saints of Underground thing. But Kerry and Jani, and again, that's how I met Kerry Kelly. Kerry and Jani, they had written a ton of songs together, and just in the time that they worked together and were friends, and they had this really cool bond. They wrote a lot of great stuff. I'm sure one day that music will come out, because I know they recorded it like proper. Oh, cool. And so I'm hoping that comes out one day. But that's how I met Kerry Kelly. Is I've known Jani since back in the club days in Hollywood and stuff. Mm-hmm. And Jani and I, he just called me one day, like in '96 or '97, and was like, "Hey, I'm putting together a jam band. Do you want to play bass in it?" And I was like, "Yeah, wow, that's cool." And it ended up the guitar player was Kerry Kelly. So when Ratt were auditioning guitar players in '99, we were a 4-piece. I was playing with Kerry and Jani's band, but I didn't, because Kerry was a little bit more like a punk rock kind of guitar player, a little bit more, rock and roll, just different style of rock and roll than Ratt was, and I didn't think that he would fit in the band visually, like just image wise, and but I thought he was a great guitar player. I just didn't know that he would fit, and so Jani's actually the one who called me and said, "Hey, dude, I'll take it as a personal favor if you audition Kerry for Ratt." And I was like, yeah, I didn't want to say, well, I didn't think he's right. And I was just like, yeah, dude, of course. I love Jani. Jani was an awesome person and great writer and just a fantastic guy. And so we had Kerry down, and he got the gig. As a matter of fact, yeah, yeah, and it was funny because when we auditioned all these different guitar players. Mark Zavon from Kill Devil Thrill was one of the guys we also checked out, who I thought was great too. And Mark's an awesome guy too, great guitar player. But Kerry, just we were laughing because Kerry brought down an amp with this like little power thing, a Variac on top of it, and at the end when we were like going through the guys we liked, Stephen Piercy kept saying, "Hey, I like the kid with the green thing on his amp." And I was like, and listen, and I'm going, yeah, my buddy Kerry. He's like, "No, not that guy. That guy Kerry, your friend, was not good. The guy with the green thing." And I'm like, "That's my friend Kerry." So it ended up, that we were talking about the same guy. We just, we're different language, I guess, and or different things we focused on. And so Kerry got that gig in Ratt as our second guitar player. So, yeah, that's how I met Kerry. It was through Jani and that whole Saints of the Underground thing. So there you go. There's the whole story.
Nice.
Well, okay, so you're not like in Saints of the Underground, but you kind of are, kind of in a weird way. Whatever. This is really hard for me to ask this question, but in the landscape of Saints of the Underground, how did you view this venture by the rest of your bandmates? Was it a band? Was it a project? Was there a future? If Jani was still alive today, would this been a ongoing band?
Absolutely. Listen, Jani, only because, and I say this only because in my time of working with Jani, which was obviously, I guess when we started, although we knew each other, and we have to go back a little bit more. Like Jerry and Eric from Warrant, I've known since I was 15. Like Jerry dated a gal that went to our school in high school, 10th grade, and so we met Jerry through this girl Gina Herman, and he was in a band called Risk, and so his band Risk opened for an early version of Warrant, and I was at the show. I stood right in front of Jerry on stage and was like, "Dude, that guy's a killer bass player," and they got him in the band like that, and that's how I met Jerry. So I met Jerry when I was 15. Eric, I've known the same amount of time, since about that, a little earlier than that. So, like, I'm really good friends with all the Warrant guys. Like, they're my buddies. And so Lane and I have known each other for many years. I saw him in Plain Jane. We've known each other forever. Long story short, Jani finally calling me in '96. I worked with him for all that time. I think that if Jani was still alive, seriously, he was so musical. He was so about just growing and playing with great players, and he made me a better player. I mean, he was so... He just had every instrument in his head, and you'd be playing something, and he would always like, okay, let's just say we booked a gig on a Saturday in San Diego. The agent would call us, we'd book it, we'd get in the van, we'd go down there. And when you're driving there, dude, to the gig, he's like, let's play Thin Lizzy's Cowboy Song tonight. And it's like, nobody knows it, but we've heard it. You know what I mean? No, I'm not kidding. And he would challenge you in the car. He would go, all right, man, which one, we're going to do this song tonight. Everyone do your homework, bone up right now. And he'd play the song like 5 times. And that was it. You had to figure it out. And it was awesome because it was challenging. You know what I mean? It was like, figure out the key, figure out don't play it, just in your head, figure it out, and get up there on stage tonight and throw. And that's what he would do to us, all of us, all the time. Mike Fasano, who's in a band, I forgot the name of the band. He was in Warrant too for a while as a drummer. Something Army, Toy Army or something like that. Mike Fasano, the drummer, was the drummer originally in the band. And so it was Mike, Kerry, Danny, who was the Warrant keyboard player, Danny Wagner, and Jani and I. And that was the earliest version. That's how I met those guys, or Kerry and Mike and all those guys. But we played a lot of shows, and it was fun. Yeah, so do I think Saints of the Underground would have been a band today? Absolutely. Kerry and Jani wrote for all those years. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They have a lot of material. So I think that Jani was so musical and just loved playing with people, whether it was Warrant or whether it was his, own band or his, this band that we did. He did a lot of other bands. I think we would still be playing together. Yes. Absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. And that album, that one-off album is so good to listen to. It's so relevant no matter the time period. Yeah. So that's why I was like, man, this band was so tight. I thought, wow, this couldn't just be a one-off thing if Jani was still alive. But Jeff, go ahead, take the next question.
Well, I just want to ask you a little bit more about that. When you said learning a song on the fly, I guess walk us through your process of that. I mean, but that would have been back when you had to find a copy of the cassette or CD or you just can't download it on your phone like you do now. So that's a little bit a little more challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think as a player, when you're a youngster, at least the way I started, you fall in love with music as a kid just listening to it, whether it be Kiss or Queen or Sabbath or whatever, and you listen to all those tunes, right?
Yeah.
And then you eventually get into playing an instrument if you do, and then you either are like, yeah, this is cool, or wow, this is really hard, but I really love it anyways. Or you just it becomes who you are. And so for me as a kid, it became who I was. I always had a guitar or a bass in my hand from when I was a youngster. My dad played. had the benefit. My dad played bass and guitar. So did my grandfather. He was a flamenco guitar player, and also worked at the Fender factory in Fullerton, California.
Cool.
In the 50s and 60s. But so for me, I was around music, and so I had it around me. So I'd pick up guitars, always playing them. So when you, as a kid, you learn a lot of music. You just, sit down and try to learn fucking Iron Maiden, or, whoever, the Chili Peppers or, Hendrix or the Beatles or whatever. You just start, noodling around. So when you start learning how to learn songs, you kind of spend the formidable years of your journey learning people's music. So you kind of have a general idea as you start to see, at least what I did, was you start to see patterns in songs, how they're, placed, intro, chorus, pre-chorus, maybe a re-intro verse or re-intro chorus, whatever, bridge, so whatever, solo, all the way out, right? And you start kind of getting these ideas of how people write songs. Well, I was a big Lizzy fan. We all were when we were kids. So Cowboy Song I had heard 100 times. But I never played it. You know what I mean? Mm. So you start listening for the open note, man. I just listened for the the open note, and I'm like, oh, that's an A. You know what I mean? So, hey, that's an octave. Hey, that might be a fifth. You know what I mean? Or a fourth or whatever, and you just start getting into it. And before you know it, you're like, oh, yeah, I can hear that. And so you literally visualize it on the neck. That's what I do. And sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're right. Dude, I saw this thing with Victor Wooten the other day. He's like, you never hit a wrong note. Like you might hit something in passing, but it's never wrong. So, sometimes you hit a note that you're like, oops, but it's music. It's musical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah. That was probably my process at that moment, as it would be with any. And when I say this wasn't just a one-time thing. This was like we started to get prepared for it every day now, because he just loved. Jani was a musician, and whether people want to accept him or call him whatever they want to call him, the reality is he's a very brilliant writer and head of just well out of the genre. He wrote for that genre very well, but I think that he would have been a successful songwriter in any genre he chose.
Yeah.
And had he continued on his journey, he definitely probably would have been, in my opinion, writing great music for a lot of people. And whether it be for himself or for other artists, I think that his musical voice would have been heard to this day, because it still is. I mean, I don't know if you've really, I'm, friends with those guys, and I dig the Warrant Band. I like their music. I think those songs are great. I think, you listen to songs like I Saw Red, you can feel the pain in his heart.
Yeah.
If you know a little background on the guy, some of the gals he dated, some of the relationship he had, he's very public with all that, and he poured it into his songs. And if you can listen and think, and in hindsight, with the troubles he was having from what he passed from, he obviously was struggling. And it brings a new focus for me, at least on those songs. So, yeah, man, I think Jani was super talented, and I absolutely still be touring and doing his thing today if he could be.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
I kind of want to switch gears on you here again.
Yeah.
That's all we're going to do on this interview. We're going to switch gears on you. But
I told you I'm a talker.
Yeah, man, it's good because we're going to bounce around on you all night tonight. So, so early '90s, you joined forces with Vince Neil, and you released the Carved in Stone album. Sonically, it was a different direction for Vince. Can you talk a little bit more about the recording process and the rest of the album, in the personnel in that band? How did it all work out?
Yeah. So Carved in Stone obviously was Vince Neil's second solo album for Warner Brothers Records at the time, and we had come off of the Van Halen tour in '93 with Steve Stevens and Vic Fox on drums. I think it was Dave Marshall on second guitar, and then myself and Vince in the band. And when we peeled off of that tour, we came back from Japan, very successful tour, great time. We had a lull there, and we were, not sure what was going to happen next. And then Steve Stevens, I don't know what their business was, but Steve Stevens just called me up one day and said, "Yeah, man, I'm moving on from the band." So I was like, okay. So I called Vince, and mind you, I was like the junior of the junior members in that band. Because, all those guys had record deals and sold millions of records. So, I was like the new kid in the band, and all these guys had sold so many massive records and had, so many sales of, whatever. They had all had huge careers. And my biggest intimidation was Steve Stevens. He had a Grammy from Top Gun and all that stuff. And it was like, that was the first thing that, I think it was our manager at the time, Bruce Bird. He, God bless him. He said, he's like, yes, he had this big, deep voice. Bruce Steve Stevens is going to be great. He's got a Grammy for Top Gun. I was like, what? I'm like, oh, what? What's a Grammy? I was like, are you kidding me? Like, And then the first rehearsal with him, I don't think we go back that far, but I was playing guitar in that band when I first joined the band. I was not, although I've always been a bass player. I've never played guitar in a band in my whole life. I could play guitar, but I'd never play. I was always a bass player from when I started out. I joined Vince's band as a guitar player. Vince quite literally called me and asked me to be in his video for You're Invited But Your Friend Can't Come through his brother-in-law Gary. And I'm in, so I show up at the video shoot, and Vince is like, oh, cool, man, where's your guitar? And I had this bass with me, and I was like, I don't have a guitar. I have a bass. He goes, I swear to God. He goes, oh, don't worry about it. He's all, don't worry about it, dude. He's like, pick a guitar from these rack of Gibson Les Pauls that they had sent him. Seriously, it's like 20. Awesome. And so I used this red Les Paul, and I shot the video for You're Invited But Your Friend Can't Come. And then he, told me I was going to be in the band, and I was the rhythm guitar player, and then we were going to find another guitar player, and he brought Steve Stevens in, and here I am, with Phil Soussan on bass and Vic Fox on drums, and Vince Neil and Steve Stevens, and I'm like, holy hell, Phil's from Ozzy, and Vic was in Enough's Enough, and Steve was from Billy Idol, and Vince from Motley Crue, and I'm from I'm from Hollywood, California. You know what I mean? I'm like, hey, whoa, and I'd never played guitar before in my whole life in a band, and here I am on stage at the MTV Movie Awards in '92 playing guitar. So if you ever get a chance to see that, You're Invited But Your Friend Can't Come from that, I'm actually playing guitar in that. And
oh, cool.
Yeah, so I joined the band. We go on, do our thing. We get to the Carved in Stone record, and Vince has this meeting with Warner Brothers and comes back from the meeting and says, hey, man, we're going to do a second record, and but we're going to do it with these cool new producers called the Dust Brothers. And I was like, I thought to myself, like, the Angel Dust Brothers? I was like, I didn't know who they were. And in all fairness, we just, coming from the rock scene, they didn't do the last Maiden album, so I was like, who are these guys? And so we met with them at Vince's house in Malibu. It was actually Dave, Marshall, myself, and Vince, and the Dust Brothers, and John and Mike. And we talked, and they played us some music because we couldn't wrap our head, because you have to realize it was an early version of that DJ music.
Yep.
That was mixed with rock and roll. And so we were trying to see Kenny Austin from Warner Bros. At the time was one of our A&R guys. We were trying to understand their vision of why to put this together. So we had this meeting. We listened to some of their music, and the first song on the record, which is an Alice in Chains riff, "We Die Young," and the song's called I can't remember the name of the song. Breaking in the Gun, I think it is. Yeah. And so, am I right? Is it Breaking in the Gun? Hey, he wins. Yeah. So, yeah. But that's how long it's been since I've listened to that record. But, they had that idea, and they played us that, and we were kind of like listening out. And I was, always loved different styles of music, so I was, oh, cool, this is killer. And Vince loved it. Vince was like, fuck, this is killer, and it's different, and it's new. I mean, you have to realize it's pre-Nine Inch Nails, it's pre all those bands. And so we were like, cool, let's start doing some stuff. Well, Dave was like, what the hell? What the hell is this? And so we ended up going into the studio. Vic, the four of us, it ended up being with no Steve. Dave was the last guitar player. And Dave was going to be the guy, I guess, on the record. And so we got together with the Dust Brothers. They were pretty hardcore. They were very talented. They had just come off the Paul's Boutique success with the Beastie Boys. So they had never, they worked with bands. They were like Silver Lake guys, and they were pretty bohemian, if you will, and there was a lot of weed. So we, I think our budget was $1 million. I think we spent $700,000 in weed, and it was, and so we just got stoned and wrote a lot of music. And Vic and myself, and initially Dave would jam in a room, and they'd record us, and then they would mix it down to snippets of ideas that we played, and they would make them into songs. And so what ended up happening was we get in the studio to record. And the way they did it, there was no pre-production, and there was no, like, give me some riffs. It was like, let's just get in a room and let you guys jam and we'll record it. So that was, like, the first 2 days. And then we went to record Breaking in the Gun, and they had a problem with the way Dave was recording it. So they asked Dave not to play on it, and I played the guitar. So I played the guitar on that. That's me playing guitar and bass on that intro riff. And then they brought in Sonny Reinhardt, a kid named Sonny Reinhardt that was playing with an early version of Beck. Remember Beck?
Yes.
2 turntables and a microphone?
Yep. Yeah.
So they had done a Beck record. I think they were leading up to it, or they'd known Beck. So they brought Sonny Reinhardt in. Sonny plays on a couple of songs for a couple of days, and I'm like, who's this guy? And I had a dude that lived in, this is crazy, in my apartment building that owed me $3,000 because he would borrow money from me whenever he was getting evicted from the apartment. And he was this guitar player that I kind of knew. I knew him a little bit from the area, but he was in a band called Wildside, and I had heard their record.
Yes.
And I thought the guitar was great on it. And so we started hanging out in this apartment building. I was dating this Playboy chick, and I would be at the pool with him all the time. He'd be all depressed because he just lost his record deal, and his girlfriend left him, and I'd be all, just got off tour with Van Halen, and I'm like, hot Playboy chick in a brand new Jaguar. What's up, dude? And he's like, so, it's like, one guy on the slide going up, the other guy on the slide going down. And it taught me a lesson that, it can happen. So long story short, he owed me money. I knock on his window. I go, and I'm like, dude, come to the door. And he's like, what's up? And I go, you owe me money. You're going to the studio and earning that back and paying me. So I just said, come down to, NRG Studios in North Hollywood, and we're going to, it's going to be okay. And he's like, is Vince going to be okay with it? I go, don't worry about it. Vince don't care. So he rolls in, and it's Brent Woods. Brent Woods?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So Brent comes into the studio, and the Dust Brothers are like, who's this guy? And I'm like, this is my guy that owes me money. Get your guy out of here. And so we quite literally, the three of us, Brent, Vic and I, got into the control room, dude, and we wrote 10 songs in 2 days, just fast. The three of us had chemistry. We just jammed and had a great time. So we wrote The Crawl, which I stole that from, obviously from Van Halen's Fair Warning and the Red Hot Chili Pepper song I had heard. So that riff is my riff. And then I just showed it to Brent, and Brent just built off that. And then, Vic had a ton of riffs that I wrote with Vic. And then I wrote Writing on the Wall. And we had all these different ideas that the three of us jammed. And,
cool.
And then Marty Fredrickson, who was, Marty Fredrickson?
Yes. Yeah.
Marty, that's how we met Marty. He was in 94. He came in and wrote the lyrics for a lot of that stuff with us. And he's all those background vocals from Marty.
Oh, wow.
And, so we did that record, with those guys. And let me tell you, it was like 9 months. I mean, do you ever see the Hanson video from Mba?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Dust Brothers did that record too. That room that the camera's spinning around in, that's their house, their living room. And we recorded there. We recorded everywhere in Hollywood. We get kicked out of so many studios for how much weed we were smoking. It was like, dude, it was bad. It was bad. And it was, it was like that was like the last of the rock and roll Mohican records that was made. I think it was just like, you know what I mean? It was like making a rap record with guitars, because it was that much weed, and we just smoked a bunch of weed and had a lot of fun. That's the truth. And Vince was so awesome and so cool and so open-minded about the shape of that record. I really credit him, seriously, for having the vision and going, yeah, dude, this is going to be cool. I couldn't see it because I was like, what? And I don't think, because every time I would tell people, we're in the studio with the Dust Brothers, they go, what? The Beastie Boys? Like, what? And I was even like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's cool. I mean, I don't know yet. I haven't, really gotten into it yet. But listen, I'm proud of that record. A lot of people don't know about that record, or that heard it kind of pandy because it wasn't a rock record or whatever, but it wasn't. But I just thought it was cool, man. I thought Vince really, again, he just was really willing to do, and he was like, fuck yeah, I'll try that. And I know he, I don't know if he did or he didn't, but he's Vince Neil from Motley Crue, but I don't know if he got necessarily the best rap as like an artistic, part of that band as much as he probably deserved. I mean, I know that when we worked with him, he was totally in charge. That first record, I mean, Steve Stevens is a pretty, formidable force in the studio and music. I mean, the dude's a monster on guitar and an amazing songwriter, and definitely knows how to put records together. You know what I'm saying? Like that was something for me as a kid. I was 20. I say a kid. I was 21 years old, 22 years old, seeing all of this happen in front of me. This is how you build a band. This is how you write songs. This is how you write songs for a record. It's one thing to write some songs, but it's another to build a fucking record. And it's a, it's a legit process. And especially with cats that, have had that much success, they obviously knew how to do it and what they were doing. And so for me, I was just remember sitting there every day, like, just shut your mouth and watch. You know what I mean? Just shut your mouth and watch and play whatever guitar. So, so I ended up going back to bass when Phil left in 93. And then we did the album photo shoot. So if you see the photo on the album, I'm dressed as the bass player, but I'm actually was a guitar player in the band. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, it's Eric's talked about this before and other podcasts, but it's a shame that he doesn't get the credit for taking a risk of doing something outside your box, outside your normal sound as a solo artist. A lot of solo artists get panned for that, or don't get the credit they deserve for trying something new or trying to be fresh.
Yeah, no, dude, and Vince. Again, I would. Some people are like, "Wow, I can't believe you recorded with the Dust Brothers." I'm like, "Yeah, you'll do an interview. Oh, what are some of the best producers you ever recorded with?" Oh yeah, Nick Raskulinecz, Jay Rustin. You start going down the list, Elvis Biscuit. You know what I mean? And then you go, yeah, the Dust Brothers, and they're like, the Dust Brothers. You know what I mean? Like, you mean from the Rolling Stones? I'm like, before the Rolling Stones, after the Beastie Boys, during during the what's that band? Beck, during the Beck, two turntables and a microphone. But they also those guys did Young MC, Bust a Move.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
They did that. They did Tone Loc. That's all them. Tone Loc, Funky Cole Medina. That's them. That's all their music. That's all their thing. And they're very talented, John and Mike. Was it John King and Mike Simpson?
Yes.
And just talented cats. I mean, I was like, okay, there's two of them. Like, you have to work with them to really capture what they did, and they're super talented cats. And the early versions of Pro Tools, we would record into ADATs, and then they would bump it up into their computer, and we were like, what? Like, yeah, just watch, bro. And they would, they were killer, dude. They were so talented, and they would make a riff, or me just going boom dum dum doo do 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 do. You know what I mean? Mm. They would record it, everything, and they would, like, how they remembered it or found. I mean, hours. If it wasn't, it had to. Those 10 hours we were there a day, sometimes 12, just jamming stone. How they ciphered through that, and the next day they would have 2 songs out of that. It was trippy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they had to have gone, oh, that's cool, mark that, or I don't know.
Excuse me.
Because we were just jamming, like me and Brent and Vic, and then we would get, so they would get like a core of a riff together, you know what I mean, and maybe like a pre-chorus or something, and they would go, yeah, let's write something with this, and then we would legitimately like sit and write more music to it, you know what I mean, and yeah, that's kind of how that record happened. At least the songs that sound more like that. Like the song, the riff Brent brought in, he had a co-writer on that. That was more of a ballad. And then One Less Mouth to Feed is because Dave Marshall got kicked off the record just because, well, whatever. It's no slag on Dave. It's just that, it happens. You just don't jive with the producer and it doesn't work out. You know what I mean? Right. That's kind of what happened with Phil on the first record. But so we wrote Vince. I think it was Vince. I'm pretty sure it was Vince. It was the Dust Brothers. They go, yeah, Dave's not in the band. Dave's not going to record the record. It's One Less Mouth to Feed. So that's the name of the song we're going to work on. And literally, that's what the song. That's the song on the record, right? It's called One Less Mouth to Feed, right?
Oh, so cool. Gotcha. So you kind of answered my next question was the Dust Brothers, but I'm going to kind of try to form a question out of that anyway, since you've answered most of the question. But that being said, the Dust Brothers being, their ties with the hip hop industry, Beastie Boys, Tone Loc, Young MC, then they traveled on to go to Beck and then Hanson. Did you ever kind of feel like in the realm of the rock world, dealing with producers that really weren't a part of the rock world at the time, did they have a hard time relating to what you guys were trying, your vision opposed to what their vision was? Was there any kind of confusion at the time?
No, I don't think so. I think they always just saw it as music, whether it was, and that's why their resumes are so vast and broad. I mean, they worked with the Rolling Stones too, and a number of other artists. I think that they always just felt like good music was good music, and they didn't care who played it, if it was country or hip hop or R&B. They were about it. Punk rock, they were very, very punk rock in the way they did stuff, and they would say it to your face. They would go, we just want to be surrounded by talented musicians. We don't care about anything else. We don't care what riffs you bring. We don't care what influences you have. We just want talented musicians. That's what they told you before you even started recording with them and working with them. And in hindsight, I think it was more about, they just wanted you to go out and just get up, because I think that's another reason the record took so long, is for us to shed our inhibitions and not be like, yeah, but we're writing, a record for Vince Neil from Motley Crue, hence it should be Motley Crue. But I think the first record had that on it, and that's not on anybody. That was for obvious reasons. I mean, everyone, that was just the natural progression for Vince, and that's just what came out of everybody. Nothing I think was contrived on that first record. I thought it was more of just who we were at that time. But same thing goes for that Card and Stone record. I think Vince was in a massive transition in his life. I think that, he left Motley Crue quite literally in like February of '92, and he had written Yearn by Your Friend Can Come the first week of March of '92, and we shot that video the first week of April. So he didn't really have any time to sit down and reflect and go, who am I? You know what I mean? Yeah. He was just off and running, and I absolutely give him credit for that. He was so, he wasn't like, forceful in any way. He was so fun and cool to be around. He was a great band. I've been in a lot of bands with a lot of people. I've been in a lot of bands with a lot of guys that claim to be the leader of the band and who are absolutely not. But Vince was a great leader. Sorry, a lot of people might go, what? But he was a great leader for us. He really, I'm just saying, he really was like, hey man, we should do this. A lot of cool, just a lot of, really put us in good positions to be successful and to work hard. And he loved to work. He was at every meeting, every rehearsal. He never. I've been in bands with guys, singers don't even show up to rehearsal, but you know what I mean. Vince was there early, first guy in, first guy out. He was like the Tom Brady of our band. You know what I mean? He just pushed us, and it was great. And then Steve, Steve was just really amazing at bringing everyone to the next musical level. I mean, he was so good at that. I mean, I was a Hollywood player, dude, and I credit Steve Stevens a lot with kind of introducing me into how to being a truly professional musician. You know what I mean? Had I learned from other people who were like, yeah, man, let your cigarette hang low, bro, and always have a beer in your hand, then I probably would have been in 2 bands, and that would have been the end of my career, I think. But Steve was like, no, bro, you practice that until it's perfect, and then play it with some feel. Do you know what I mean? And it was he pushed you, and he was hard on you. But in hindsight, it made, and I've told him this, and I've said it in other interviews, he made me into a real musician. I was just a kid playing clubs like everybody. You know what I mean? And not that I turned into some fantastic whatever, but for me, I just know what my mental transitions were, and my physical and musical transitions were, and when they came about. And Steve Stevens was a big influence on me on that. And so I appreciated that. So yeah, man, I thought Vince and that whole record and that whole thing and the vision of that whole era for him, especially Vince, he was in such a massive transition from Motley Crue, heading into what? You know what I mean? What am I going to do next? His daughter had gotten, cancer by that point.
Yeah.
We started to work on that record. There was a lot going on in his heart in that. And so I think that Vince, he should get credit for that, for having the vision. He wrote some really cool stuff on that. I thought the Skylar song, when she had passed, I never forget the day, dude, when I had to call him. We were at the Long Beach Grand Prix, and we just had hung out that whole day, and he had a race team at the time, and they were this team, and they were running the race, and so there was a big party afterwards, like a black tie gala, whatever, and there at the Long Beach Grand Prix, and I wasn't going to go, so I left the race, and I was driving home, and again, his brother-in-law, Sharice's brother, his wife's brother, Gary, and I were very close. Gary called me and was like, hey man, are you with Vince? And I said, no, I just left him. And he said, you need to go back to get Vince right now. I go, why? And he said, Skylar's in the hospital. And I was like, what? Oh my God. So I had to turn, they couldn't get a hold of Vince. And this is back, we all had these cell phones, but they were like these big, Motorola suitcases. You know what I mean? They were they were like those Motorola walkie-talkies, like big, huge. So I turned around and I went back up, and I'm literally in my shorts. By this time, I'd been in traffic for an hour, and Vince is in a suit at this, really killer gala, and I come in my shorts all dirty, from the day, and I had to go find him. I find him, and I'm like, oh my God, Skylar's in the hospital. So, I had to tell him that, and that was, that was rode me, and I went to the hospital with them and met them at the hospital there. But long story short, he came to me with that song after Skylar passed. He and I went on this trip for about a week. He just, he called me, and he was like, he had gone to a rehab. I mean, whatever. Those guys go in, and I don't think I'm talking his business. I'm sure he shares it with people. He don't care. But and he was in Palm Springs, and he called me and was like, "Dude, I broke out of the rehab. Come get me." And he's go get my Rolls Royce. Go to the accountant and get a grip of cash and come get me. So I literally, drove to his house, got his Rolls Royce. He had this killer convertible Rolls Royce with puka shells hanging from the necklace, and it was killer. And I drove to the accountants and got this fucking massive envelope of money. Vince always had a shitload of cash on him, and drove out to Palm Springs. And I came and found him at this hotel, and we hung out and we went on a golf trip, dude. We hung out for this is right after Skylar had passed, and like that week, and so we went on this golf trip, and he just kind of had to unwind his brain, dude. And it was good. It was pretty cathartic. We didn't say much. We just top was down, so you didn't really talk. But we drove all around California and Nevada and Arizona, and then we came back, and then we finished that record, man. And we did the funeral, and then we finished the record. And he just called me up. I got this idea, and he played the opening, guitar part for the Skylar song and sang me everything, and so I wrote the pre-chorus, and then Brent and him kind of wrote the chorus, and yeah, that's how that song came about. So I think Vince was very focused on that record. He was going through a lot, and again, the transitions in his life, I think, are a lot on that record. Just, a lot for all of us was going on. I had never had money in my whole life, and then finally here I am. I had made some money a little bit in the first record, a lot more in the second record, and so here I was in this different life, and I was dealing with that, and we were all dealing with our own alcohol and drug dependencies and all that stuff, and there was a lot going on at that time for us. So yeah, and then but I love that record. I think that just thinking back to that time was awesome. You know what I mean? You're a kid and you're like in a band and you're like, you buy your first BMW and you're like, check it out. You know what I mean? It's, you know what I mean? It was good times. And Vince, dude, Vince was wonderful to us. I mean, he treated everyone. I never saw Vince ever. I mean, I saw Vince go off on some people for rightful reasons, but I never saw him be crazy, to anybody in the band. He was always really cool and just really awesome,
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
Jeff, you got the next question.
So I'm just going to bring you back forward to the present a little bit. Last time we talked, you were working with Ricky Warwick, and he had his When Life Was Fast and Hard album was just about to be released. How is the reception of that going?
Great. Man, Ricky's, talk about hard worker, Ricky is the real deal. He's, he's just got that Northern Irish Belfast blood in him, man. He's just like full steam and such a talented writer and a good guy. What do you say about that? I mean, his music and his work ethic speak for themselves, and I dig it. What an opportunity! Him and Keith and I was very thankful they asked me to do that. And record's been really well received. I mean, he's on Nuclear Blast with that, and they've done such a fantastic job of getting him out there and promoting this record and putting it out there and giving him a fair shot. He really has a great body of work, Ricky. With Black Star Riders all the way back to The Almighty, which I love, and he's just such a good dude, man. And record, everyone's been digging the record.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, Keith Nelson produced it. Keith's a monster. Just always dug his playing. And he's great. What a great producer. He produced it and recorded it. And Xavier Muriel's on drums, also from Buckcherry. And who else is on that? Oh, Adam Parsons, our manager, played on the tune on that. That was fun. Man, that's a cool thing about for me being from Hollywood. I always play with just Hollywood guys. That's you kind of hang where you work where you hang, right? You hang out with the guys you work with, and you live in the same city, and that's kind of how you do. You cross the U.S. a little bit, play with different guys, but I've never played with guys from different countries.
Yeah,
so like culturally, it was a little different for me. The English and the Irish culture is very different from the American, I think, and and it's got its greats and it's got its whatevers. And I at first was like, I didn't really sink in. These guys are culturally different because I didn't think anything of it. But it's just a cool thing to learn, man. They have a lot of loyalty that some of our musical American brethren don't. And they're very honorable men, and I love their word means something. It's rad. I'm like, wow. I always say this. I've always only asked for the truth. Just be honest with me. I don't care how I'm not gonna hurt my feelings. Just be honest. And sometimes it's hard for some people to address those feelings where they can be blatantly honest with somebody. But I love that about the English. They're just like, hey mate, this is what it is. You know what I mean? And I love the honesty and the candor in that. And it's cool, man. I love everything about them. Working with Black Star Riders and all the guys in that band, and Ricky and Adam Parsons and Ace and all those guys, just really good people. And it's great situation. I'm very blessed to be a part of that. Yeah.
Cool. Two of my favorite songs off that album are Gunslinger and Still Alive.
Yeah, dude, Adam Parsons on drums on Gunslinger. What a great tune, huh?
Yeah.
2 takes, man. We just knocked that sucker out. Yeah, that's the other thing about Ricky is he's so punk rock in the way he does stuff. He wants it to be right, but he wants it to be live and full, and he wants it to. It's cool. It's just a great experience recording with these guys. Yeah,
I know
different.
He's been doing some of those live stream shows.
How crazy is that? He opened for Def Leppard on an arena tour with just him and his acoustic guitar. Dude, he's great. That's gutsy, dude. I could never do that. I'm like, what? Like, you couldn't catch me in my backyard with my fucking guitar on, opening for myself.
Now, with you with the Fighting Hearts, have you guys done an electric live set yet?
Well, yes. So the Fighting Hearts, I was on the record prior to that as well. When I first joined Black Star Riders, Ricky was in the process of finishing when Life Was Hard and Fat. No, it was Patsy Cline.
Yeah,
the Patsy Cline album, and I played on, I don't know, 5 songs on that record, and he just was like, "Hey man, do you want to play on my record?" I was like, "Yeah." I think it was initially going to be like 1 or 2 songs, that I just, just like I yap, I kept playing. So I ended up on 5, and I would have stayed if it didn't get dark out. I would have probably been on more of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was on that one prior to, and Keith was not involved with that one. But this one is Ricky Warwick. This is not a Fighting Hearts album. It's quite literally Ricky Warwick, because the reality is it's all Ricky's music. You know what I mean? And it was all Ricky's thing. But on this one, Keith and Ricky did write together. And again, they had all the music and everything done before I even got involved. And again, I was really honored that Ricky would reach out to me and ask me to play on that. I mean, he's such a good guy. He's got such an amazing. A lot of music people don't really realize that he's involved with. Like, he did he just wrote the whole record, co-wrote it with Andy Taylor for the new Power Station record. Andy Taylor from Duran Duran. We were out on tour, and Ricky would go to Ibiza on the days off. I was like, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to Ibiza." "For what?" "I'm going to write with Andy." They wrote a whole record, and it became the new Power Station album. And so, yeah, Ricky writes for a lot of people and with a lot of people. He's great, dude. He's awesome.
When is that Power Station album coming out? I mean, I've researched it. I haven't found it yet.
Yeah.
What's the word on that?
Eric and I are excited about that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to ask Ricky, but I've heard it. It's awesome. I mean, but I love. When I was a kid, my sister was totally into Duran Duran. I was like Sabbath and, Van Halen and, whatever, Pink Floyd. "Get out of my room with that, crap," or whatever. And she'd get all, whatever. And so I would just listen to it through the wall and be like, "That's crap." And then she would leave, and I would go into her record collection in her room, and I would take the Duran Duran records out, and I would learn those John Taylor bass lines. I was like, "Oh, that cat's badass." And so I got into that, those Duran Duran albums when I was young, and Andy was just, I loved it. It was his songwriting, and he's just such a great guitar player. So yeah, I don't know, Ricky's whole thing with Andy, they've said the record's coming out. I've not. I mean, I don't know when. I don't get involved, but I've heard it. Ricky's played me it, and it's awesome. So,
yeah. Fantastic!
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna go back a little bit further here. In 94, 95, you were the studio bassist for Tuff, Stevie Rochelle, Fist First, and Religious Fix albums. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the writing and recordings, or actually probably more just the less of the recordings of those albums? Did you have anything to do with the writings of those 2 albums at all?
No. Again, back in the day, this is creeping up on me now in life. I did a lot of demos when I was a kid. I guess I played in a lot of bands, and a lot of bands would either have paid me to play in their demos, or I don't know why. I mean, I didn't know any music theory until I was 30, and and I just was like some dude, you know what I mean, in Hollywood, and so I was on a lot of demos, but I knew the Tuff guys, because back when I was a kid, I think we talked about my Poison days when I worked for Poison. Mm-hmm. We used to go to Arizona like once every 2 months, and we would play this venue called Bootleggers, and the opening band were always Tuff, and but it was Tuff in a different. It was Michael, George, and Todd, but it was with a different singer. First a guy named Terry, and then a guy named Jim Gillette, and then later Stevie. So I had a long history with the Tuff guys. Like, I've known them for a long time, like 15 or whatever. But at the same time, I've known Jerry Dixon, like, a long time, and Eric from Warrant. But so when Todd, they had a deal on Atlantic, and I would, again, being a Hollywood kid, I was always around music, and I teched for people I didn't care. I teched for Todd from Tuff, so I did a few tours and local runs with the Tuff guys as well, and so I knew all those guys really well. And when Todd left Tuff after they lost their deal on Atlantic, or something happened. I don't know exactly what happened. It was about 91, and they just came to me and said, "Hey, we're doing demos for this record and for Atlantic, and will you play bass on them?" So I didn't get too heavy into the whole Todd thing. I just said, yeah. So that's in essence the Fist First record are those demos that. They're recorded proper in Cornerstone, and it's a proper studio. But I just came in and just learned the songs. I think I rehearsed them once or twice, and then we just recorded it. And it's funny because I listen to it now, and I'm like, Jesus, I was speeding up like in everything. You're a little kid, you know, and you're like, that has absolutely no groove. But, you know, you're a youngster. But, I mean, it's in time, but, you know, nothing as to what I would, you know, today would go, oh, yeah, that's cool. You know, but, you know, it's just you grow. And I love that I've tried to be a student as much as I can. To get better, you know. I still play every day. It's weird. I have such a connection and a passion to music, and yeah, I love it. It's great. So the Tuff records, I think, were so that record was just that. But I did play some rehearsals and what are they, showcases for the label and for some other people, and we rehearsed next to Kiss, and it was when Eric Singer and Bruce Kulick were in the band. So it was 91, right? 91. Mm-hmm. And we were at Studio D in North Hollywood. And Gene would come in and play my bass. Because I have this old Fender P bass.
Oh, how cool.
And I was playing the Spectre, but I had my P bass there. And so he played, you know, my bass. And that's how when I first met Gene, was the first time I was at that studio. I'm a massive fan of it. And yeah, dude, so that was the tough thing. But so what ended up happening was, and this is kind of crazy, they were going to ask me. I mean, there really wasn't a band at that point to be a part of, although the guitar player George had asked me, oh, you know, we want you to join the band. And it was never formally offered to me. Like Stevie and Michael never said to me, okay, we want you to join the band. This is what it is. But I was just kind of subbing for them. I never played live with them, but I just did some showcases in that studio and the recordings. And then I got the Vince gig. Gotcha. You know what I mean? And I was like, you know, they were like, yeah, you got the Vince gig. You know, they didn't even say, oh, they were like, cool, man, have fun, you know, and that was it. So that's how that happened. That right there. I mean, end of 91, and then I was playing with Vince by March of 92.
Oh, wow.
You know?
It's so funny that you say that, because Todd Chasen was like one of our very first guests on the podcast like 4 or 5 years ago.
Correct.
He left he left Tuff to get into the industrial thing, right? The industrial music. I think that's what he told us way back when. He was doing like some Nine Inch Nails type stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, I lost touch with what Todd was doing. Although, dude, I always loved Todd, and I think Todd's a great bass player and a great songwriter and a great singer. Great singer. Todd's great. He's at one of the Chase-ons, dude. He comes from that tree, man. He's got Kenny and he's got Greg. I mean, those guys are monsters. I remember seeing Kenny. He was the first Chase-on I saw when he was in Kiel, and I was like, "Damn, that bass player is solid." You know, he was great. And then obviously Greg in Badlands and all that, and Todd, dude, he's great, and what a good guy. And yeah, dude, when I see Chase now, I'm like, dude, what's up? I mean, we've known each other forever.
He's doing that. He's doing that like food truck thing, right now. Is that what he's?
Yeah, him and Billy from Warrant. What's that? Billy Madison. No, Billy. No, I'm just kidding. No, Billy. I can't believe I can't remember. Morris.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, Billy Morris. Yeah. Holy mackerel. Sorry about that, Billy. Yeah. Dowie Billy.
All right, so I got two more questions for you. It wouldn't behoove us if we didn't talk a little bit about the 2005 Adler Appetite EP with yourself, obviously Steven Adler, Carrie Kelly, Jizzy Pearl. It was with a 5-song EP. And we had two out of those 5 songs. 2 of them were covers, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah. So, how do I start that? Carrie, yeah. I've known Steven since I was a little kid. Steven, I've known everybody since I was a little kid, but I grew up in Hollywood, and so Steven was one of the the street dudes that musician guys that we would always see, always very bohemian and cool, and had that smile on his face. And we had a mutual friend named Ron Schneider. God bless his soul, he passed, but he was a really good friend of ours, great bass player, and one of my favorite bass players when I was a kid. And Ron Schneider was in a band called Titus Sloan with Slash and Steven, and then he was in Road Crew with Slash and Steven, and just in different bands, just in incarnations. Great bass player. And so I would always go to Ron's house and we would smoke weed, and Steven would be there. And so I kind of got to meet him then. And then, Guns N' Roses does their thing, and they are who they are. And then Carrie Kelly called me one day and said, this was like in 2001, he's like, hey, dude, I'm going to go play with Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses tomorrow, will you come and play bass? And I said, yeah, but what is it? He's like, I don't know. He's not played drums since Guns N' Roses, and he just wants to jam. It could be something, it could be nothing. Will you come? And I said, yeah. So he goes, we need a singer. Who do you think? And I was playing with Jizzy Pearl at the time in Ratt. He was, doing his thing with us. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, you need somebody who can scream like that. Axl, why not Jizzy Pearl? And, he's a Hollywood urchin himself. So, why not? So we go down the three of us, and we just jammed various songs, whatever, a couple Guns N' Roses songs, whatever. And it was, it was Steven. I mean, he was just still hadn't played, so it wasn't great. But it was Steven Adler, dude. I mean, when he played a beat, you were like, there it is. Mm. That's the beat. That's the feel of that record. He is just – I was just talking about this yesterday, how spot on he still is. I played with him 2 years ago, and we did Rocket Queen together. And that groove's not easy. It's easy, technically easy, but it's feel-wise. It's got a thing about it. And he just pops into it, and you're like, that's the groove. You know what I mean? It is perfect. He's really got an amazing feel about him, and he's such a nice guy. Steve's such a sweet, take the shirt off your back kind of guy. He hasn't lost that charm that he had as a youngster, and he's a unfortunately he's had some demons like everybody has, and sometimes he get the better of us, but he's a talented cat and funny dude. So we jam with him. And he's like, yeah, man, we should, we're like, what is this? And so we were like, let's go play some live shows. Let's just put some other covers around it. And we'll just jam, just jam band kind of thing. We'll just take it from there. So we called it Suki Jones. And we went and played a couple of shows on the East Coast and a couple of shows on the West Coast. And it was good. And it was really good. And we liked it. And we were like, cool, man. And then Kerry had been playing with Slash at the time. And he was like, hey, I got this guy in England that wants to book us. And, the money didn't work out well, but we were willing to do that. So the money just wasn't what we thought it would be, so we just said no. But this lady in Italy came in and said, what if you come to Italy? I got a guy in Spain. So we were like, okay. So we went to Italy and Spain. And, dude, it was like the Beatles. It was like, I'm not kidding, dude. It was like Bob Marley landed. You know what I mean? It was like there were people going berserk for him, cool. Dude. And it was wonderful, dude. It was so great. He was so crying because he was like, I thought everyone forgot about me. You know what I mean? And so we went over and we did the first run. We did 15 shows in like 3 weeks, and it was awesome. And it was fun. And we would do just cover songs and a couple of his Guns N' Roses songs. And then we came back and we did it again. We broadened it a little bit more, added some more dates to Japan. And then we were like, Mike Varney from Shrapnel Records had come to us and asked us if offered us to make a record, and so we had talked about it, and so we were like, we might, we'll probably want to do that. So we were like, we were more concerned if we can actually record or write anything, with him or with each other. So we went to Kerry's house. He had a full studio in this big killer house that he has, and we set up and we recorded. We just started writing songs, and when we probably have 60 songs that we wrote. Me, Kerry, and Steven. I mean, Kerry's, like I said, with him and Jani, Kerry's a great writer. He has a lot of great songs. And as a matter of fact, that ballad that's on that EP was from a different project that he's actually singing that song. He wrote the whole thing. And we heard it, and we're like, dude, we got to record that song. So the reason why it was only 5 songs is because we initially did this demo. I'm sorry, we did these 3 songs, which was 99 and that ballady one and one other, because we were like, well, maybe we'll sign with Mike Varney. Let's do a demo and shop it. Maybe we'll get somebody else. You know what I mean? So we did the demo. It just didn't work out with Mike Varney. We decided just to keep it like ourselves. Like, let's just own it ourselves and just put it out there. And the theory being, we'll put out a little demo, kind of like, what's his name? Can't Touch This. What's the rapper's name?
MC Hammer.
Yeah.
MC Hammer, get some hype, people will be like, oh, there's this cool demo out or cool EP out, and then we'll get some better, like Motley did with the Leather Records, just get a little bit of momentum, and then maybe somebody will be more interested in it, rather than, hey, former guy from Guns N' Roses got a record. You know what I mean? Just kind of let the music do the talking. Like, here's what's going on. Mm-hmm. If you're interested, this is what we're thinking about. And so that's what we did, and it worked. We did the 3 songs, and we ended up putting 2 covers on it. because we were like, we'll just do that, and so that's not so obvious that we're we're fishing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's as far as we got with it. But we had all these other songs demo, which Carrie still has. We were just talking about it. We actually had another singer sing on 10 of the songs. Oh, wow. So there's 10 more songs of that era of that band with a different singer on it, and they're really good, I think. But it's just us jamming that, me, Carrie, and Steven. And then Carrie put the second guitars on it, and that's pretty much what it is. So yeah, that's how it became an EP. And then there's two different versions. That was the other thing. One when the band started to because it didn't last long because it was Adler's first thing back into music.
Yeah.
And he had been sober for a while, as sober as he could have been at the time, and He worked hard. I mean, he tried to not, let his demons get him. But dude, they crawl up on you, man, and I get it. And but he did great for us. I mean, we had a wonderful time together. And then we were all, Carrie was by that time he was in Alice Cooper, and I was playing in Ratt, and Jizzy was playing. I don't know if he was in Ratt still, but we just, we were busy. And so he was like, hey, I still want to go to work, and you guys are always busy. And so we were like, dude, you should just get another band. So he started, brought some other players in, and that's kind of how it moved on. But we love Steven. He's like our brother, and like I said, I just played with him again. It was so fun. He's just got the best. He's the happiest person in the world. He feels so. He's dodged so many life bullets that he feels so lucky to be. I'll tell you. I mean, he's like, dude, I should have been dead so long ago. And now he's like, dude, I'm alive, and it's killer, and I'm enjoying it. And so I'm happy for him that when he plays drums, you can just see that smile on his face. That's truly real, I think. It's because I just have seen that dude in some pretty serious situations. He's just thankful to be playing those drums, And so that's what that was. And then, but dude, we did some crazy tours. Like we did like North Africa, like all over Europe, crazy tours with. I mean, we went to South America with dude. Steven is the Guns N' Roses phenomenon is quite literally a phenomenon. It's people singing the songs. It's like, not for me. Not for me, for Steven, and I was just happy to have known the dude for so long and to see him back in that environment where people were appreciating who he is and who he was and what his massive contribution to rock and roll was. You know what I mean?
That's so cool.
Yeah.
You have to tell him. You have to tell him for us because I've tried to get him on the podcast so many times, and his manager shoots me down left and right. So you have to tell Steven like how cool we are that he should come on the podcast.
No, I'll say something, but dude, Steven has handlers for a reason, and I love those
exactly.
Because he's been through a lot of people who may not have had his best interest at heart.
Exactly.
And I believe the people that he's surrounded himself with in the past 20 years have really, Carolina, his wife's awesome. She's such a good person, and she really has has a good eye out for him and his mom and just all the whole family and everybody that's around him. Steve Sprite is just a wonderful guy who's really done an amazing job of just being a good person and for Steven and being a good role model for Steven. I think it's great.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
As we talked about Steven here, we had Brain Mantilla on a few years ago from Primus, and obviously he was in GNR when the Chinese Democracy album came out, and he was saying, he was telling us when he was in the studio working with Axl, and they were getting ready to go out on tour, doing the Appetite stuff, because they played probably 3/4 of the Appetite album on that tour. But Brain himself, being the guru of drums, he was saying, man, Steven's stuff was really tricky to play, to really to learn, and that's something to be said from a guy like Brain,
Yeah, no, Brain's amazing. Yeah, no, we when I did the Ratt record, the '99 Ratt record on Columbia with John Claudner, it was we recorded it at Rumbo, and they were in room A doing the Chinese Democracy thing, and we would hear them play, and yeah, man, they were a machine, man. That band was amazing. At the time, it was Robin from Nine Inch Nails on guitar, and Tommy on bass, and I think it was Josh Freese by that point on drums, and Dizzy Reed obviously just sounded so great, man. I was like, wow. I mean, they're just such talented musicians. The whole band's amazing. Yeah, all those players that were involved in that, and it's so killer though for me to see Duff and I wish Steven was there. I really do, but I totally understand why dude. Steven's done a lot of damage to himself, and do I think he could do a full tour? Absolutely. So I just think I think because I just played with him, dude. He sounded great. I was like, this guy's still totally got it. You know what I mean? Totally the feel. I mean, telling you, he plays anything. You're like, oh yeah, there's that feel. It's weird. Oh, I have a story. Here's a good one. We played in '94. We played the Key Club in Hollywood with Adler, and we were sitting at sound check. This is the first time this ever happened too since the band broke up. We're sitting at sound check and we're just kind of playing, and in walks this guy in with a hat on, like a jacket. He has like a little combo amp and a guitar in his hand. He just kind of walks in. And he stands on the side of the stage. He's looking at us, and we're kind of playing. I'm like, what's this guy? The opening band trying to tell us to get off? You know what I mean? Like we're sound checking, fuck off, And I look and it's Izzy Stradlin. And mind you, remember the missing milk carton? What missing Izzy Stradlin?
Yeah.
That's the last image I had of him. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, there he is. You know what I mean? Like the spaceship dropped him, because you have to realize the door from the Key Club, the backstage doors open, so there's the sunlight coming in. You can't really see; you just see the shape. So it's like Close Encounters. I swear to God, I was like, oh my God, there he is. And so I kind of look at Steven, and I'm nodding over, and Steven's like, oh, is he? And he stops, and he comes over, and he's like, hey, and he's like, hey, can I sit in with you guys? It was like, what? So he puts his little amp up right there where he stands. If you watch Guns N' Roses, he was always to the right of the drum riser, right there by Steven, and puts his amp in. Our tech tunes it up and gets him ready, and we start playing. I forgot what song it was, but we start playing one of their songs. We probably get to the first verse or second verse, and he stops and he pulls his phone out and he starts dialing, and we stop, and he calls somebody, and he hangs up the phone, and 2 seconds later, I'm not kidding you, 2 seconds later, door opens, amp walks in, two guys put the amp down, put the cabinet down, wah pedal comes out, guitar comes out, in walks Slash. It was like on cue. I'm not kidding. I was like, oh my God, there's Slash. And so he comes up, and it's Izzy, and Steven's crying, and it was like, oh my God. And Steven's like, and Slash is like, let's jam. And so we played Mr. Brownstone. And of course, it's sitting. And so there's video of us. We play. That's the first time the three of them had played together since Izzy left in '91, right? And right, is that right? When Farm Aid, whatever it was.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Actually, when Steven left. Yeah. So when Steven left, and so it was cool to be a part of that. I got to play bass on that, and we played 5 or 6 Guns N' Roses songs. It's out there on video, and so that was cool, man. It was really cool to be involved in that moment and see Steven reconnect, because he really does love those guys, aside from all the other crap. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, last question. So, I think it was like 3 years ago. I can't believe it's like 3 years ago. We had Steve Stevens on. It was a freaking awesome interview, right? And he made a real poignant comment. And obviously, I'm not a musician, but you probably can relate to this. But a guy like him, I was like shocked for him to say that. He said, I wake up every morning, I get a cup of coffee, and I look at my guitar. And I say to my guitar every day, what are you going to teach me today? And I thought, this is Steve Stevens saying, what is my guitar going to teach me?
Yeah.
I mean, that was like some deep, deep shit right there.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on a guitarist of that level coming down to such a grounded position and say, what is my guitar going to teach me today?
Yeah, well, I mean, what you just said, I think in a nutshell describes Steve Stevens and his work ethic. He, if there's something I will always say about Steve, it's his work ethic and his willingness to go on a journey. Doesn't matter what it is. And musically, he gets, he looks at his guitar and goes on journeys daily. I do it with my bass. I pick it up, and I don't say that, but I just start playing, or a guitar, I just start playing, and it takes you on a journey. You get lost in where, oh, that's cool, that sounds good. Then you strum a few chords, and you know what I mean? Either it sounds good that day or it doesn't. And sometimes I pick up a guitar and strum it, or maybe Steve does too, and he's like, nah, not feeling it. And it just doesn't happen that day. But some days it just, you know what I mean? It bucks. Some days it gallops. And I hear, dude, I worked with Steve limited time, obviously only like a year and a half or whatever, but he like I said, he shaped me just by his work ethic. And I mean, I don't think he ever came to me and said, practice. I mean, as a matter of fact, we lived next door to each other, and he used to knock on the wall and go, stop practicing. I was so nervous to lose that gig, you know what I mean? I was like, I was like the squeaky wheel with that didn't have no grease. You know what I mean? I was like, yo. And so I did everything in my power to, and maybe that speaks to my work ethic, is that I just stayed, with my eye on the ball, and I was, if I was going to get clipped, it would not be for the lack of effort. You know what I mean? And that's absolutely how I've always done everything. I always try to come into any situation I do prepared, just like any job or any sport. I try to over prepare. Like, so if I have a gig, I don't care if it's tomorrow and I'm getting called tonight, or if I've known about it for 6 months, I will over prepare every day until it happens. You know what I mean? So if I get a gig for a 2-song gig 6 months down the road, that I'm going to work on it at least once a day for the next 6 months, 7 days a week. I'm an over preparer, and I believe in it. I think it's, again, it's just work ethic and who you are, and it's self-respect. I mean, some people go, "Oh, I appreciate the respect." It's like, yeah, man, but I as narcissistic as it sounds, I mean, I do it more for my own self-respect, because I care deeply about how I feel and how I would feel like I've been in the situation where I didn't know the next note. I'm like, oh, where do I go? And it doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? I like to enjoy the trip when when you go to get the meat and potatoes of or the dessert, is when you get to go do the gig or the record and you get to be with your friends. But, the hard work is done, in the classroom. And quite literally, when you sit at home and work, it's the classroom. You're learning, you're educating yourself. You're playing for yourself and you're enjoying it, but for me, and I think that speaks to Steve, maybe his point, I'm speculating, but that maybe he was saying that he's learning still, and he wants to learn. I mean, dude, the guy is so well versed in everything. I mean, just theory. I mean, he's one of those players that plays with simplistic effort, but there's so much brilliant theory behind what he's doing. It's effortless. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, it's cool.
Oh man, we want to thank you so much. I mean,
another fun evening.
Yeah, you never cease to amaze us with your storytelling.
Yeah.
Oh man, thank you so much. Well, hey, you know what? Sorry about missing you guys last time. My bad. I'm thankful our cats are cool, but I'm thankful that we were able to get together and yap a little bit more. And I'm always game. You guys have a hole that you need filled. I'm right there.
Oh yeah, it was so cool because last week we had James Lomenzo on at 6:30, and there was you at the next time. We said, "Hey James, we got Robbie Crane coming on." Oh man, it's so cool. Tell him we said hi, or what, on and on. So, did we miss anything tonight? Was there something that you wanted to cover, plug, or promote that we missed that you want to give?
Always, there's always something. No, I'm good, brother. Thank you. The Black Star Writers, where we get another record we're working on. It's going to be out soon, and then in the coming year. And yeah, man, we've got a few things cooking that you'll see me in the next year or so. And awesome. Yeah, all is well.
Man, we're excited.
Yeah,
we're excited. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself. I'll be in touch with you in about, about 2.5, 3 weeks with this episode, and we'll have it posted. And, man, just thank you so much. And,
thank you so much.
Hey, good luck this summer, man.
Thank you. You too. And have a safe summer, and we'll talk soon.
Take care.
All right,
bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
And now a word from our friends at the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The Sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.